West Papua, Indonesia. Some of the last untouched rainforests on the planet are being cleared to make way for oil palm plantations.
Saya biasa menangis. Saya menangis, saya sedih. Kenapa saya punya hutan alam Papua yang begini indah yang Tuhan ciptakan untuk kami. Kami jaga hutan ini dengan baik dan kami tidak pernah bongkar hutan. Tapi orang dari luar datang bongkar tuh. Buat saya tuh luka.
Indigenous tribes paid less than $10 a hectare for their ancestral lands.
Saya kalau menurut iman, saya berdosa. Ini kan saya sudah tipu 10 marga. Terutama kepentingan perusahaan bikin sampai kita manipulasi saja ini sebenarnya.
Here has a South Korean palm oil giant carried out deliberate and illegal burning on its land.
We have developed a technique that can determine if a fire is intentional or not. This can bring liability to big corporations who are in charge of these concession sites.
The company at the center of this story, associated with the world's leading sustainable certification body. The forests of West Papua are some of the most biodiverse in the world, filled with unique flora and fauna. These rainforests, sacred and essential to the hundreds of indigenous tribes who call them home. Mandobo tribal elder Petrus Kingo explains how the sago palms that grow wild in these forests are a staple food for his community.
Sagu ini minimarket saya. Jadi sagu ini di luarnya tulang, di dalam itu ada isi sagu. Jadi kita parut, setelah parut ampasnya bawa ramas, setelah ramas masuk di 𝗶𝗶, tepungnya jadi sagu, kita bawa pulang. Jadi ini minimarket saya yang saya makan tidak perlu bayar, itu gratis.
But 6 years ago, he got involved in something that changed his tribe's fate forever. He negotiated with a Korean palm oil giant called 𝗃 and persuaded his tribe and 10 other clans to accept just $8 a hectare as compensation for their land.
Bapak nanti kami kasih honor upah. Bapak sebagai koordinator, terus biaya pendidikan nanti tanggung perusahaan, nanti ada rumah-rumah bantuan, sumber air bersih, nanti gengset. Jadi anak-anak sampai biaya sekolah lanjutan itu nanti tanggung perusahaan. Coba itu bicara semua tapi tidak ada dalam tertulis.
He shows our BBC team a map of the area he claims is his ancestral forest. This receipt showing he received just over $30,000 for 5,000 hectares of land.
Pada saat perusahaan ini kan sudah lebih awal pegang izin. Jadi maunya dia buru cepat supaya dia transaksi pembayaran itu per hektar 100.000 dulu supaya ada persetujuan ini dengan tanda tangan marga, terus dengan foto supaya saya ajukan ke Jakarta, itu tujuannya.
𝗃 says they paid an additional $8 for the trees, an amount set out by the Indonesian government who gave them the permit. Petrus says they felt pressure to sign.
Sebenarnya ini perusahaan dengan polisi tentara ini manipulasi saja. Nah, dengan cara untuk menakutkan kita supaya ini tanah berikan. Wah, ini tidak benar.
The company deny this and say all their dealings complied with Indonesian law. Laws made 4,000 kilometers away in the capital, Jakarta. West Papua, a former Dutch colony, became part of Indonesia in the 1960s after a controversial referendum overseen by the United Nations. Jakarta maintains it's an integral part of the nation, recognised by the international community. But a low-level separatist movement has been waged here ever since.
This is my land. Our ancestors gave us this land. We want independence. Indonesia has stolen our land from us. How long have we been suffering in the jungle? How many people have died? There are just so few of us now.
Papua harus merdeka dan keluar dari Indonesia. Sepakat kawan-kawan. Papua.
Last year, the biggest independence protest in decades turned into riots and ended in deadly clashes with the army. Control over the region's vast natural resources, gold, copper and the forests, are one of the key flashpoints. Despite its rich resources, it's amongst the poorest regions in Indonesia. Jakarta has vowed to change that, pumping money in, building infrastructure and opening up the region to investors. Korean palm oil giant 𝗃𝗶𝗰𝗲 has benefited greatly. They now control more land in Papua than any other company, clearing nearly 60,000 hectares of forest, an area the size of Chicago or Seoul. Their vast plantations now protected by state security forces.
Prinsipnya ini kan kategori objek vital ya, di mana pihak perusahaan meminta untuk kita lakukan pengamanan, gitu. Kita kirimkan personil untuk melakukan pengamanan.
In May this year, when local farmer 𝗵𝗶𝗃𝗲 turned up at the local office of 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗲 to complain about the destruction of his banana plantation, the police were called.
Polisi dia sampai langsung datang langsung tiba-tiba. Saya kaget, polisi sampai dan langsung diancam dari sini, dia tumbuk sebelah. Tumbuk dari sini. Pakai tangan saja.
Kenapa belum bikin kau begini ya?
3 hours later, he was dead. His daughter grieves over his body at the health clinic where he died.
Bapak sudah tidak ada nih, kurang sehat. Aduh, kenapa bisa terjadi nih? Anak-anak masih kecil bagaimana nih?
Police say he died of a heart attack. CCTV footage seen by the BBC captures a police officer hitting him.
Pada saat mau diamankan, beliau sempat ada penolakan. Tapi setelah itu ada sedikit, ya, anggota sempat agak memukul bagian pundak dan di dekat tengkuk begitulah. Proses hukum sudah kita lakukan, ya, proses kepidanaannya. Ya, secara internal kan sudah kita lakukan proses, sudah kita lakukan pembinaan, dan sudah menjalani penahanan selama kurang lebih 21 hari. Kemudian kita lakukan proses kepidanaannya. Ya.
𝗃𝗏𝗲𝗲, while having no role in his death, says they gave the family $15,000 and will pay for his 2 children's education up to university. His daughter says nothing will make up for the loss of her father.
Sakit hati ya, tidak bisa. Masih sayang, tidak bisa. Tidak bisa lupa yang itu. Saya masih sayang. Sampai mau lama juga tetap masih sayang. Karena bapak tuh itu sapunya, jadi saya tidak bisa lupa bapak.
Our team heads deeper into the heart of Papua to reach another 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗲 concession. Here too, our team found palm oil development has bitterly divided tribes and families.
Perusahaan bongkar kita punya hutan ribuan hektar, tapi apa yang kita dapat? Kita hidup dalam penderitaan. Tidak ada tuan dusun satu yang hidup dalam kesejahteraan. Itu tidak ada.
Elizabeth left her village to work in the city. When she returned, she found out her brother, now deceased, had sold their land to 𝘃𝗏𝗃𝗃.
Saya punya kakak tidak pernah jual harga diri untuk uang dan hutan tidak pernah. Saya sedih sebagai seorang adik, saya sedih. Sampai saya punya kakak jadi korban.
There's no electricity here or clean running water. Those that can afford it use generators, and fuel here costs 4 times more than in the capital, Jakarta.
Ya, itu memang awalnya perusahaan masuk itu memang ada janji-janji. Janji-janji, tapi janji tinggal janji. Jadi sama saja, hutan sudah habis, tapi semua tuan dusun ada tinggal dalam kemiskinan. Nah ini. Seharusnya kalau hutan sudah habis, kami tuan dusun sudah hidup sejahtera, hidup layak. Tapi ini tidak ada sampai 2020.
𝘃𝗏𝗃𝗃 turned down our repeated interview requests, but said in a statement that they have paid fair compensation to communities and have put an additional $14 million into social programs. Many of the tribe's allegations were investigated for 2 years by the leading global green certification body, Forest Stewardship Council, or FSC, of which 𝘃𝗏𝗃𝗃 is a certificate holder. The final report was never released, but the BBC obtained a copy. It found evidence that 𝘃𝗏𝗃𝗃 violated the rights of 𝗵𝗶𝗯𝗲 and benefited from close military ties for its own economic benefit. The report recommended 𝘃𝗏𝗃𝗃 be stripped of its FSC membership, but they decided to work with them.
The FSC logo is meant to tell you as a consumer that the product comes from an environmentally friendly and socially responsible company. And the logo is used everywhere here in Europe. It was on the sandwich napkin that I was given with my lunch and on the train ticket that got me here. So we're here at the headquarters of the FSC to ask why this logo is being given to 𝘃𝗏𝗃𝗃.
These things that happened are in breach of our values. They were in breach of our values. They will remain in breach of our values. What's the best thing to do with that? They happened, right? It's the best thing to do, say, they were in breach of our values, we're not going to have anything to do with that anymore.
That's one option that environmentalists would say, that you are taking a strong stand, and therefore maybe other companies will feel like they can't get away with it too.
But the end result, I think, would be, and the logic of the board has been, we want to see the improvements happen. We want to actually see if we can help those communities that have had problems, that have been treated in wrong ways, that have not been listened to, that have not been understood, to actually get something in terms of options, possibilities, remedy for what happened.
Remedy, he says, could be in the form of restoring forests, land rights or jobs, but admits it will be a process that could take up to 3 years to work out. In a statement, 𝘃𝗏𝗃𝗃 denied they were involved in any human rights violations, but acknowledged that there is room for improvements and say they're implementing new procedures and economic programs for locals. The FSC's investigation found no evidence of deliberate and illegal use of fire by 𝘃𝗏𝗃𝗃. It's also something the company strongly denies. But researchers from the group Forensic Architecture, based at Goldsmith University, have been testing this claim.
We had images and video footages that were showing fire and the smoke coming out of it, and it wasn't clear whether they were intentional or not. That was the question. And with that, we started our research.
This footage, taken from a plane by Greenpeace Indonesia in May 2013, shows stacks of timber burning. Using clues in the image, they located it in satellite images inside a 𝘃𝗏𝗃𝗃 concession called PT Dongeng Prabawa. They then went back to 2011, when this area was all forest, and used a technique that detects patterns of land clearing from satellite images. The blue, thick vegetation. Red shows cleared earth.
So when I play this 𝗵𝗶𝗀𝗄𝗏 analysis, you will see that the pattern and the direction of clearing is land clearing is very clear. It's moving from the central top area very clearly towards the east.
Next, they added in the heat sources that are picked up by NASA's satellites, hotspot data, and they put the two together over the same period of time.
The patterns, the direction, and the speed with which fires were set matched perfectly with the direction, the pattern, and the speed with which land clearing had occurred in these concession sites. That is evidence that the fires were set intentionally. If the fires were set from outside the concession sites or due to weather conditions, they would have moved with a different directionality. They would be diffused, they would be going up and down and south and west. But in the cases that we were looking at, there was a very clear directionality.
𝗃𝗏𝗄 says there were many natural fires in the area, especially in 2015, due to an extreme and long dry season, and insists that all the land clearing was carried out with heavy machinery, and that the fires found in their concessions were started by villagers to hunt giant wild rats hiding under stacks of wood. But people living near this concession told our BBC team a different story.
Saya melihat mereka kumpul batang-batang kayu, ranting-ranting kayu. Itu alat-alat berat yang kumpul, baru mereka tumpuk di jalur. Panjang mungkin sekitar 100-200. Baru mereka siram pakai solar, baru mereka bakar. Dan kebakaran itu udah jalan bertahun-tahun, benar mereka bongkar terus batang-batang kayu mereka kumpul, terus tumpuk sampai tinggi, baru mereka siram pakai solar, baru bakar. Sampai 2016 baru selesai.
Another man said smoke from the fires covered their community for years.
Woi, ibu tertutup ini. Kalau pembongkaran itu. Sisa-sisa kayu yang dibakar itu, yang tidak dipakai kan dibakar. Tak tutup ini dunia ini. Ini penuh asap ini, apalagi kalau sudah sore begini ibu. Itu lain lagi, sudah gelap.
Every year in Indonesia, fires send a thick haze across the region, causing breathing problems and sending large amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. If 𝗃𝗏𝗄𝗏 had deliberately used fire to clear land, it would be in breach of the law. Indonesian government turned down our request for an interview. The FSC says the company has agreed to stop all further forest clearing for now. In August, the FSC board met again, deciding 𝗃𝗏𝗄𝗏 was on track and that they would continue to work with them on improvements.
I believe there is a shift that needs to happen in 𝗃𝗏𝗄𝗏. They need to improve in a number of different areas, and one of them is to actually seek and get the approval of the community.
Do they understand that?
Why would we ask for training of all their staff this year to happen if we thought they understood that? We don't think they understand it. We think it's a new concept to them.
Isn't it too late for that? Isn't this just about putting a rubber stamp on something that's already happened?
We are taking the bet, you can say, that what we are doing is the best chance for the people and the forest to get in a better situation faster than any other track we could have taken.
Elizabeth, whose brother took compensation for their ancestral forests from 𝗃𝗏𝗄𝗏, is sceptical that anything can make up for what's been lost.
Saya selalu jalan dari divisi 1 sampai divisi 15. Saya selalu menangis. Saya bertanya di mana saya punya tete nenek moyang leluhur ini tinggal di mana. Kalau hutan saya sudah dibongkar habis. Itu yang saya alami dalam saya punya hidup.
Others have decided to go work for the oil palm company, hoping to build a new future there.
Saya ingin mau bekerja di perusahaan sambil cari uang kuliah. Mungkin tahun depan 2023 mungkin saya bisa kuliah. Saya sedih itu kalau besok ini kita mau kemana. Kalau hutan ini kalau sudah dibongkar semua. Jadi satu jalan sekolah saja. Saya langsung mulai pikiran di situ sudah. Satu jalan saya masuk sekolah saja. Karena itu orang tua sudah tidak hitung. Sudah, saya tinggal saja, ikut-ikut perusahaan.
Petrus Kingo is fighting to protect what's left of the 𝗵𝗶𝗃𝗏 tribe's forests that now fall within Corindo's concession.
Jadi baru generasi saya besok mereka hidup di mana. Jadi itu yang saya pertahankan, bahwa tanah ini tidak bisa saya kasih ke orang.
He carries a heavy burden.
Ya, saya kalau menurut iman, saya berdosa. Ini kan saya sudah tipu 10 marga. Seharusnya kita duduk dulu kesepakatan, maunya masyarakat memberikan tanah itu pertama. Memberikan kepada perusahaan atau tidak. Saya sudah rasa bersalah di situ. Ini sudah tipu. Mereka menganggap bahwa terima kasih Petrus sudah urus kita baik. Tapi saya sendiri dalam hati saya nurani bahwa ini sudah tidak benar.
Salau ame-pwi, sakil ame-pwai, no kaweto kamu na bale. Degago mamno haweto gemo.
As investors eye this, one of the last untouched corners of the planet, Petrus hopes other tribes hear his story.
Aywa deg tabalihe waninga beg abode kewa.